Chris Liu and Patrick Pizzella, two prior Deputy Labor Secretaries, have said that the role of Deputy Labor Secretary is one of Chief Operating Officer. However, in an interview with Fox VOX, Congresswoman Judy Chu expressed that before you agreed to take on the deputy role, you had a talk with Marty Walsh to get assurances that you would have the ability to concentrate on your areas of expertise. These are yes or no answers. Do you see the role as Deputy Secretary of Labor as the Chief Operating Officer, yes or no?
Thank you so much, Ranking Member Burr. Thank you so much for the time you took to meet with me. I appreciated the chance to talk about this then, too, and I absolutely see the role of Deputy Secretary of Labor as the Chief Operating Officer of the department.
Will your priority be managing the Departments of Labor's 15,000 plus employees and 10 regions, yes or no?
My priority will be to best serve, hopefully soon to be Labor Secretary Walsh and the administration on making sure that the Department of Labor delivers on its mission. And absolutely, a key part of that priority is what you just mentioned in terms of supervising, managing, making sure the department works well and that the staff have what they need in order to perform their jobs at the highest level.
The buck stops with you as Labor Secretary in California. California's provided it at least $10.4 billion and up to $31 billion in fraudulent unemployment insurance payments under your leadership. Again, these are yes or no answers. Shortly after you were appointed secretary, a state auditor urged the Employment Development Department to address its mailing system after millions of Social Security numbers were included in a mailing sent to wrong addresses. Did you implement the recommendations made by the auditor, yes or no?
So, Ranking Member Burr, thank you again. There are a lot of issues in the unemployment insurance, what has happened over the last year. That audit happened well before the pandemic, and yes, the recommendations of that audit have been implemented.
In August of 2020, the California State Auditor's Office identified as a high-risk issue the Employment Development Department's management of federal funding in response to COVID-19. And in September 2020, California's state auditor, Elaine Howell, was directed by the California Joint Legislative Audit Committee to conduct emergency audit of EDD. Is that in fact true, yes or no?
Yes, there were a couple of audits conducted in relation to the pandemic. One was about fraud, and the other was on operations.
According to State Auditor Howell, you directed the Employment Development Department to pay certain claimants UI benefits without making key eligibility determinations and to temporarily stop collecting biweekly eligibility certifications. Knowing the unemployment insurance system was at risk of fraud, you chose to remove the checks and balances. Yes or no?
So thank you, Ranking Member Burr. I think what's important here is, I mentioned there were two different audits. The pandemic-related fraud that has been perpetrated across the country is really a nationwide insidious criminal scheme. That is a different audit and a different situation. I'm happy to talk about that as well. But then the audit about operations, which mentioned, yes, that I took steps consistent with what was then the Department of Labor's guidance in order to try to make sure that benefits continue to get out to Californians when we saw that there were threats to the stability and the security of our system. We did not waive any fraud checks at the time. There was no finding that that decision led to the massive frauds that— You
didn't waive any certifications?
We did not waive certifications. What we did was we said, because we saw that individuals were coming into the system to certify every 2 weeks, and this was threatening the stability of the system itself, what we said was that there was a period of time in which people, especially because of the pandemic, it was very unlikely that people were going back to work, that if they went back to work and were no longer eligible, they had to come and inform us of that. separately, but not through the system that was supporting the entire
Let me get my last
UI.
question in, if I can, Secretary. As Deputy Secretary of Labor, your job will be to prevent fraud and abuse of taxpayer spending. Will you prioritize expedience over protecting against fraud and taxpayer waste? Yes or no?
So the UI system is a constant, it's a dual effort, both to get payments out to people who need them, especially in the most desperate of times, and to stop the fraud. I will certainly prioritize the continued fight against fraud. You know, the president called our nation's battle against COVID the need to be on war footing. I would say that the battle against the criminal enterprises that have relentlessly attacked our pandemic-related benefit system is one front in that fight. And in California, we've been on those front lines, right? When we saw the initial spike in claims that on the pandemic unemployment assistance, we stopped the automatic backdating of claims. After we did that, the Department of Labor instructed all states to do it. It shut down a number of the fraudulent claims that came through. We've also adopted technology. I know we talked about this yesterday. We were one of the first 5 states to do so. This is an effort to stop the identity theft fraud, which was a big part of the fraud that again, you know, cost, that hit every state. And the Department of Labor estimates is about 10% of all of the pandemic unemployment assistance claims. We put that in place. Now over 20 states have also done that. So I would take the experience that we've had in California to stop fraud, to shut the front door to fraud, and to send a strong message that our systems are secure, to make sure that we can, that the Federal Department of Labor supports the states in this effort, rather than leaving states to fend for themselves, as they are attacked one by one.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Casey.